Welcome to our in-depth exploration of a topic that has gripped the world's attention for decades, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This complex and enduring dispute has profound historical, political, and humanitarian dimensions that continue to shape the Middle East and influence international relations. In this video, we will delve into the roots of the conflict, the key players involved, the ongoing challenges, and the quest for a peaceful resolution. Join us on this journey as we seek to understand the reasons behind one of the world's most enduring conflicts. The Hamas-Israel conflict is a deeply rooted and complex issue with origins dating back to the early 20th century. Here's a brief historical overview. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the region known as Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire. It had a diverse population of Arabs, Jews, and other ethnic groups. After World War I, the League of Nations granted Britain a mandate to govern Palestine. This period saw an increase in Jewish immigration due to the Zionist movement, which aimed to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine. The United Nations proposed a partition plan in 1947 to divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem as an international city. Jewish leaders accepted the plan, but Arab leaders rejected it, leading to tensions and violence. Following the declaration of the State of Israel on May 14, 1948, neighboring Arab states invaded, leading to the First Arab-Israeli War, or War of Independence. The conflict resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, forming the basis of the Palestinian refugee issue. In 1967, Israel launched a preemptive strike against Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, leading to the Six-Day War. Israel captured the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and Golan Heights. The occupation of these territories became a major point of contention. The Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, led by Yasser Arafat, emerged as a prominent voice for Palestinian rights and resistance. It gained recognition on the international stage. The First Intifada, a Palestinian uprising against Israeli rule, began in 1987. It led to the Oslo Accords in 1993, which marked the first formal peace negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. Hamas, an Islamist Palestinian organization, was founded in 1987 during the First Intifada. It gained popularity for its resistance against Israel and its social services. The Second Intifada erupted in 2000, marked by increased violence and suicide bombings. Peace talks faltered, and the conflict intensified. Israel unilaterally withdrew its troops and settlements from the Gaza Strip in 2005, but it maintained control of Gaza's borders and airspace. In 2007, Hamas took control of Gaza, leading to a political and territorial divide between Gaza and the West Bank, with Hamas governing Gaza and the Palestinian Authority controlling the West Bank. The conflict has persisted with periods of violence, including wars in Gaza, 2008 to 2009, 2012, 2014, and frequent clashes. The territorial disputes at the core of the Hamas-Israel conflict revolve around several key areas: 2012, 2014, and frequent clashes. Since Hamas took control of Gaza in 2007, Israel has maintained a strict blockade on the territory, controlling its borders, airspace, and access to the sea. This blockade severely restricts the movement of people and goods in and out of Gaza, leading to economic hardship and humanitarian crises. One major point of contention is the construction and expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, which is considered occupied Palestinian territory under international law. These settlements, often built on land claimed by Palestinians, complicate the possibility of a contiguous Palestinian state. Both Israelis and Palestinians claim Jerusalem as their capital. East Jerusalem, captured by Israel in the 1967 Six-Day War, is predominantly Palestinian and is considered by Palestinians as the capital of their future state. Israel, however, regards all of Jerusalem as its undivided capital. Palestinians seek a state based on the pre-1967 borders, often referred to as the 1967 lines or the Green Line. Israel, on the other hand, has shown resistance to returning to these borders, citing security concerns and asserting its rights to certain territories. The religious significance of Jerusalem is a deeply complex and sensitive aspect of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Both Israelis and Palestinians have strong religious ties to the city, particularly to its Old City, which houses some of the world's most sacred religious sites. Jerusalem holds immense religious importance for Jews. The Western Wall, the last remnant of the Second Temple, is one of the holiest sites in Judaism. It is a place of prayer, pilgrimage, and celebration for Jewish people worldwide. Additionally, the Temple Mount, known as Har Habayit in Hebrew, is believed to be the site where the first and second temples once stood. Jews pray at the Western Wall because they are traditionally barred from praying on the Temple Mount itself. Jerusalem is the third holiest city in Islam, following Mecca and Medina. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, situated on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, is one of the most sacred sites in Islam. It is believed to be the place where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to the heavens during the night journey. The Dome of the Rock, an iconic golden dome structure, is also located on the Temple Mount and holds great significance for Muslims. The religious significance of Jerusalem exacerbates the conflict for several reasons. Both Israelis and Palestinians claim Jerusalem as their capital, driven in part by its religious importance. This makes any compromise on the city's status extremely difficult. Access to religious sites is a source of tension. Restrictions on access to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, for example, have led to clashes and protests. The construction of Israeli settlements in East Jerusalem, which Palestinians see as part of their future state, is viewed as a threat to the Muslim and Christian holy sites in the city. Jerusalem holds immense emotional significance for people on both sides. It is not just a territorial or political matter but a deeply emotional and spiritual one. The construction of Israeli settlements in the West Bank is a contentious and complex issue at the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israeli settlements are communities of Israelis built in territory captured by Israel during the 1967 Six-Day War, including the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Here are key points to consider regarding this issue. The construction of Israeli settlements in the West Bank is considered illegal under international law, particularly the Fourth Geneva Convention, which prohibits the transfer of an occupying power's civilian population into the territory it occupies. Numerous United Nations resolutions, including UNSC Resolution 242 and 338, call for Israel's withdrawal from territories occupied in 1967, including the West Bank, and regard settlements as an obstacle to peace. Settlement construction has been a major impediment to the establishment of a two-state solution, where Israel and a future Palestinian state coexist side by side. The presence of settlements complicates border negotiations and territorial integrity for a future Palestinian state. Settlements often consume large amounts of land and natural resources, such as water. This has a direct impact on the daily lives of Palestinians, limiting their access to land and resources for agriculture and infrastructure development. Settlement expansion increases the Israeli population in the West Bank, altering the demographic balance. This makes it more challenging to create a viable and contiguous Palestinian state. The presence of settlements requires a significant Israeli military presence to protect them, leading to tensions and clashes between settlers, Palestinian residents, and the Israeli military. The international community, including the United States and European Union, has repeatedly condemned settlement construction as detrimental to the peace process. Some countries and organizations have implemented or called for boycotts and sanctions against products from Israeli settlements. Various peace initiatives and negotiations, such as the Oslo Accords and the Roadmap for Peace, have aimed to address the issue of settlements as part of broader peace agreements. Some Israelis argue that settlements are strategically located for security purposes and provide a buffer against potential threats. Others view settlements as fulfilling a historic and religious connection to the land, and a manifestation of Israeli sovereignty in the West Bank. Palestinians see settlements as a violation of their rights to land and sovereignty, and as a major obstacle to achieving statehood. Settlements restrict economic development and freedom of movement for Palestinians in the West Bank. The rise of Hamas in Gaza has significantly impacted the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Here's an overview of Hamas and its role in the conflict. Hamas, an acronym for Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya, Islamic Resistance Movement, was founded in 1987 during the First Intifada, Palestinian uprising, against Israeli rule in the occupied territories. Hamas is a Palestinian Islamist organization with a strong emphasis on resistance against Israeli occupation. It combines political, social, and militant elements under a religious framework. In 2006, Hamas won a majority of seats in the Palestinian Legislative Council elections, leading to its control of the Gaza Strip. This electoral victory resulted in a divided Palestinian leadership, with Hamas governing Gaza and the Palestinian Authority, led by Fatah, controlling the West Bank. Hamas has been involved in armed resistance against Israel, launching rockets and engaging in conflicts like the Gaza Wars in 2008 to 2009, 2012, 2014, and 2021. Periods of ceasefire have alternated with escalations of violence. Ceasefire agreements, often brokered by Egypt or other international actors, have been temporary and fragile. The conflicts between Hamas and Israel in Gaza have had significant humanitarian consequences, including civilian casualties and damage to infrastructure. Hamas's rivalry with Fatah, the dominant Palestinian political party, has contributed to political divisions between Gaza and the West Bank, making efforts toward Palestinian unity and statehood challenging. Various reconciliation efforts have been made to reconcile the two Palestinian factions, but they have had limited success. In addition to its military activities, Hamas provides social services and charitable activities in Gaza, including schools, hospitals, and welfare programs. This has contributed to its popularity among some Palestinians. However, Hamas's governance in Gaza has faced criticism for its authoritarian tendencies and restrictions on political dissent. Many countries, including the United States and European Union, designate Hamas as a terrorist organization due to its militant activities. Hamas receives support from regional actors like Iran and Qatar, which affects its ability to govern in Gaza and pursue its political and military objectives. Egypt and other regional actors often play a mediating role in negotiating ceasefires between Hamas and Israel. In some instances, Hamas has expressed readiness for a long-term truce with Israel in exchange for lifting the blockade on Gaza and addressing Palestinian demands. The involvement of international actors in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, including the United States and neighboring countries, has been significant and influential. Here are some key points regarding their roles. The United States has historically been a strong ally of Israel, providing military, economic, and political support. This support has included substantial military aid and diplomatic backing in international forums. The U.S. has periodically attempted to mediate peace negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. These efforts have included hosting talks, proposing peace plans, and encouraging both sides to reach a resolution. In 2017, the U.S. decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and move its embassy to the city sparked controversy and condemnation from Palestinians and many in the international community. Egypt has played a role in mediating ceasefires and reconciliation efforts between Hamas and Fatah, the two main Palestinian factions. It has also exerted influence due to its shared border with Gaza. Jordan has a significant stake in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, especially regarding the status of East Jerusalem, which includes holy sites. It has at times been involved in peace talks and has called for a two-state solution. Lebanon, home to a significant Palestinian refugee population, has been affected by the conflict and has supported the Palestinian cause in international forums. Although Syria has its own conflicts, it has supported Palestinian groups opposed to Israel, such as the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine General Command. The United Nations has passed numerous resolutions related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, emphasizing the need for a two-state solution and addressing issues like settlements, refugees, and Jerusalem. UN agencies, including UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, provide humanitarian assistance to Palestinian refugees. The European Union has been actively engaged in diplomatic efforts to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict. It supports a two-state solution and has provided financial assistance for development projects in the Palestinian territories. The Arab League, consisting of Arab states, has generally supported Palestinian aspirations for statehood and peace with Israel. It has proposed peace initiatives that involve recognition of Israel in exchange for a Palestinian state. Civil society organizations and activists worldwide have played a role in advocating for Palestinian rights, including through boycotts, divestment, and sanctions (BDS) campaigns. The Oslo Accords, initiated in the 1990s, were a significant peace process involving the U.S. and other international actors. While they led to limited self-governance for Palestinians in parts of the West Bank and Gaza, a final resolution was never reached. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been marked by cycles of violence, clashes, and ceasefires over many decades. Here's an analysis of these recurring patterns. Violence often erupts due to trigger events, such as territorial disputes, religious tensions, or political developments. These events can range from clashes at holy sites like the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem to disputes over land and settlements. Initial incidents can quickly escalate into broader conflicts, involving both military and civilian casualties. Retaliatory actions by both sides can lead to a cycle of violence, with each side blaming the other for initiating hostilities. Clashes involve military operations, including airstrikes, artillery shelling, ground incursions, and rocket attacks. These clashes often result in casualties among combatants and civilians. Some clashes have taken place in densely populated urban areas, leading to significant civilian suffering and infrastructure damage. Ceasefires in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict tend to be fragile and short-lived. Violations of ceasefires are common, often leading to renewed hostilities. deep-seated historical animosity between Israelis and Palestinians contributes to the recurrence of violence. Long-standing grievances and mistrust are difficult to overcome. Political factors, including disputes over borders, the status of Jerusalem, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees, remain unresolved. This political stalemate contributes to ongoing tensions. Cycles of violence result in significant civilian suffering, including casualties, displacement, and damage to infrastructure. Both Israeli and Palestinian civilians, including children, bear the brunt of the impact. Prolonged periods of conflict have led to humanitarian crises, especially in Gaza. Access to basic services, healthcare, and education is severely compromised during active hostilities. The international community has made repeated efforts to mediate and broker peace agreements. These efforts, including those by the United Nations, the United States, and regional actors, have had limited success. The cycles of violence have hindered progress in the peace process. Trust-building measures and negotiations have been repeatedly derailed. Public opinion on both sides has often become more hardened after periods of violence, making compromise and reconciliation more challenging. Past peace negotiations in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict have been critical attempts to resolve the long-standing issues. Two significant negotiations are the Oslo Accords and the Camp David Summit. The Oslo Accords were a series of agreements between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, signed in the early 1990s. They aimed to establish a framework for the resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The first agreement, known as the Declaration of Principles, Oslo I, outlined a process for achieving self-governance for Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Oslo II expanded on the self-governance arrangements and divided the West Bank into areas A, B, and C, each with varying degrees of Palestinian authority and Israeli control. The Oslo Accords led to the establishment of the Palestinian Authority, which assumed limited self-governance in parts of the West Bank and Gaza. Security cooperation between Israel and the PA was a notable outcome, with joint efforts to combat terrorism. The Oslo process faced criticism from both sides. Palestinians accused Israel of expanding settlements, while Israelis faced increasing terrorist attacks. The Camp David Summit, hosted by President Bill Clinton in July 2000, aimed to resolve core issues, including borders, refugees, and the status of Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak offered significant concessions, including a Palestinian state in roughly 90% of the West Bank and Gaza Strip, and shared sovereignty in East Jerusalem. Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat rejected the offer, citing concerns over the remaining 10%, the right of return for refugees, and control over East Jerusalem. The summit ended without an agreement, leading to a breakdown in negotiations. The failure of the Camp David summit contributed to the outbreak of the Second Intifada, Palestinian uprising, in late 2000. Following the Camp David summit, negotiations continued at the Taba summit in early 2001. While significant progress was made, the talks were cut short due to the Israeli elections. The roadmap for peace, proposed by the United States, the European Union, Russia, and the United Nations, outlined a three-phase plan for peace, including an end to violence, Palestinian statehood, and final status negotiations. Despite initial support, the roadmap faced obstacles and was not fully implemented. The Annapolis Conference brought together Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, with the goal of launching negotiations aimed at reaching a final peace agreement. While the conference led to renewed talks, no comprehensive agreement was reached. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the world's most enduring and complex conflicts, and achieving lasting peace remains a formidable challenge. Several key challenges and prospects must be considered. The status of Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem continues to be a major point of contention. Israel's settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem make it difficult to establish contiguous Palestinian territory. Both Israelis and Palestinians have legitimate security concerns. Israel is concerned about terrorism and its citizen safety, while Palestinians face security challenges arising from occupation and conflict. Deep-seated historical grievances on both sides contribute to mutual distrust. Events like the Nakba catastrophe for Palestinians in past conflicts create emotional barriers to reconciliation. The Palestinian demand for the right of return for refugees and their descendants is a significant obstacle. Israel opposes this, fearing demographic changes. Palestinian political divisions between Fatah and Hamas have hindered unified negotiations. In Israel, domestic politics and frequent leadership changes can disrupt continuity in peace talks. The involvement of external actors, often with conflicting interests, can complicate peace efforts. The role of the United States, in particular, has been both a mediator and a source of tension. The internationally endorsed two-state solution, where Israel and Palestine coexist as independent states, remains the most widely accepted framework for peace. Many nations and leaders continue to advocate for it. Grassroots efforts that foster dialogue, understanding, and cooperation between Israelis and Palestinians have the potential to build trust and promote peace. Changing dynamics in the Middle East, such as normalization agreements between Israel and some Arab states, offer potential for broader regional cooperation and support for Palestinian statehood. While peace talks have faced setbacks, there have been instances of significant progress. These historical achievements, like the Oslo Accords, show that negotiated solutions are possible. In conclusion, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a deeply rooted and multifaceted issue, marked by a complex history, territorial disputes, security concerns, and emotional trauma. Achieving lasting peace demands unwavering commitment, diplomacy, and compromise from both sides. The two-state solution, supported by the international community, remains a viable path forward, but it requires courageous leadership, grassroots initiatives, and international pressure to bring it to fruition. As we reflect on the challenges and prospects for peace in this region, let us remember that the goal is a future where Israelis and Palestinians can coexist in peace, security, and prosperity. It's a future worth striving for, and it's in the hands of leaders, citizens, and the global community to work tirelessly toward this shared aspiration. If you find this video informative and thought-provoking, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel for more content on global issues and conflicts. Your support helps us continue to shed light on critical topics like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Thank you for watching, and let us remain hopeful for a more peaceful tomorrow.